banana leaf, and boy, what a feast it was. So one of Henry's passions is he is a foodie par excellence. He is a gourmet connoisseur of really great Singapore food, and we've shared many a good meal over the decades together. Henry was also one of the original computer geeks of Singapore. He was probably among the founding members of computer geekiness in Singapore when most people didn't even know what a computer was. Henry was right there in that group, and Pastor Panjang is a very high-tech church as a result of that. And the first computer I ever bought was a second-hand computer from Henry. And I remember going, the agreement was if I bought it, he would show me how to use it. And that was an utterly useless endeavor as I sat there, and he went, so you just do this, you just do this, and I was like, could you go back to, what did you do first? And I mean, how did you turn it on? And I was always amazed at his brilliance. So, food, computers, or technology, not just computers, and then, of course, his number one passion, serving in the church, serving the Lord and honoring God. So I'm pleased that he's going to be sharing some of his story with us tonight. Henry, where are you at?
Wow! Nice things he said. If only half of it were true, it would be great. I want to thank all who have organized this AMF. I think it's relaxing and the food is good. But the best thing is having free Wi-Fi in the room. And it's hard to stop having free Wi-Fi in the room. So next year in the Philippines, if you don't have free Wi-Fi in the room, there will be lots of unhappy people. My wife and I have been attending the AMF ever since we began our ministry, which is in 1966. We tried to attend most of the AMF. I calculated that we may have missed about 4 or 5. And so we would possibly have attended 40 or more AMF since it began. In the early days, it was not called AMF. It was called Annual Missionaries Workshop. And it was something especially for missionaries who have come all the way from America, and at the Thanksgiving period, since it's too far to go back, they come together and have great fellowship. Later, when the new breed of missionaries came to Asia, folks like Robert Reagan, who organized probably more AMF than anybody else, the name was changed to Asian Missions Forum. And by that time, there were quite a good number of local preachers and leaders attending AMF. Up to this time, there have been 3 AMF that was organized by the local churches. The first was by Kim Fat in Penang for the Malaysian and Singapore churches. Then we have one organized by the Bangkok, Thailand church, and quite recently, one of the best MF that my wife and I have the opportunity and privilege to attend was held at Bohol in the Philippines, and it was just perfect in every way, and somehow each AMF is unique and different, but always very inspiring. And so next year, Philippines may be the 4th time that it is going to be organized by a local group. My thinking is that it is a good thing that it has moved from an annual missionary workshop to an Asian Missions Forum. Because I think that it is so important that we learn from each other. And not only learning from each other, but having the opportunity to attend a good number of Asian Missions Forum. I had much opportunity to kind of connect with the local preachers of many churches in Asia. And I think that that helps to give people a jump start when we begin to do missions and when we have missionary partners. I think there's some problem with the Wi-Fi. I need the PowerPoint, and so maybe this is a good time for bio break and come back when the thing is working. My backup PowerPoint. Okay.
可以放喺用先。
How's King over there? Okay, this is a photo that we just took early in the morning, and I hope you can recognize that we are wearing t-shirts from Singapore. We are going to have our 49th National Day on the 8th of August, and I thought this would make a nice photo. When I received an email from David asking me to give my testimony, like most AMF that I attended, my reflex action is to say no and ask somebody else. But I remember that just a month ago at our church Bible camp, our elder asked me to give a testimony as well. And so I thought I'll just take the PowerPoint, bring it along and give my testimony. I think it's a good thing that David was quite open-ended about that testimony, asking me to just share anything I want. And so I took it from June's church camp, in which we have a team, and I was asked to give a testimony on living a fulfilled life. As I look back and my life. I was born in April 1947. That puts me around 67 years old. Baptized on February 1962. Been a Christian for 52 years. Married January 1968. And so began the 46 best years of my life. And in May 1966, I started full-time ministry after I graduated from Forces College. And so my life can be summed up in 2 lines. I had one job, and my one job was with one congregation for 48 years, and I plan to be faithful unto death. I will keep the faith, and I will fight the good fight, and I will keep the faith. I will keep the faith. I was baptized in February 1962. At the time, I was about 14, 15 years old. And immediately I brought my brother and my sisters to Christ. And as the 3 of us lived the Christian faith, my parents who were ancestor worshippers noticed the difference, was very open to our belief, and later they embraced the faith. I baptized both my father and my mother, and my father in his later years became very active in the faith, looks forward to Sundays, and when he was assigned to say a prayer or something of this kind, he really became very excited about it. And in the last stage of his life, when he was in hospital, he kept getting permission to come to worship the Lord on Sundays. Somewhere along the line, I got married, and Ned has been my helpmate for over 45 years. If I have any good traits in my life, it is because of Ned. And if I don't have anything that's good, blame it on me. Ned is responsible for any headway or any success that I may have in this life. And as we go on, we had a daughter, and it was such a great joy to baptize her into Christ. And then she graduated from university and had a string of boyfriends, each one causing us a little bit of mild heart attack. She finally got married, and before the marriage, I was able to see our future son-in-law baptized into Christ Jesus. I have been with the Azerbaijan congregation for 50 years, 48 of which is a full-time ministry. I plan to fulfill 50 years, but it's all in God's hand, and it's only if God gives us strength. But I will keep the faith. Finally, I will finish the course. I answered the call to full-time ministry at a pretty early age, right after graduation from Forces. And though I do not have the intention of being a minister, but being a church worker, the missionary who told me that he will be buried in Singapore left after 2 years, and the work seems to fall into my shoulders. And the first thing I tried to do was to get the church to become self-supporting, because I realized that if the congregation is always having their hands on the head asking for donations, there is a severe limitation to what we can do. And as we were working towards self-supporting, right from the beginning, PP has been a missionary congregation even before we were able to support ourselves. And so 25 years were spent trying to build the foundation, and 25 years I was planning to hand over the work to a new generation of people, to a team of ministers, so that the work will continue whether I am around or not. And so this is my last 3 years with the congregation according to human planning. I don't know what God has in mind, but since the beginning of this year, a new team has been put into action as far as the local work is concerned, and I no longer make any decisions for the church, but rely upon the team ministry. And I believe that PP will do far greater things in the next 50 years than in the past 50 years when we were struggling, when we were small, when we were young, and I do plan to finish the course. I want to take a few more minutes to introduce the church at Pasir Panjang. I think most of you know something about the church, but it's good to hear it from the horse's mouth. So, in case you think in the same way as Dave Hogan and go up on very high expectations, I want to bring you right back to earth and to see what it really is about. This picture is taken from a church camp a few years ago, and I noticed that Joel was putting on one at the AMF, and so he probably attended that camp as well. Okay, let's begin in the beginning. In about 1964, about 10 years after Ira Rice Jr. landed on our fair shores, the church in Singapore was in two places. One at Moulmein Road with less than 100 members, and another in Geylang with less than 50 members. Most of the members are young people like the bunch that you see on the screen, and they are all trying to spot Elvis Presley hairstyle and those thin ties. And out of the bunch of young people there, we have a guy called Ong An Nam. In my mind at the time as a young Christian, this young man who was about 1 year more or less older or younger than I am, seems to impress me a great deal about his Bible knowledge, his understanding of the gospel, and his vision for the Great Commission. I want you to understand, at the time the church was young, and few missionaries and members of the church don't know a great deal. But Onanda took a bunch of teenagers without much education, no money, no influence, and he tried to establish a church. This is Onanam at the Asian Missions Forum, and this picture was taken also this morning at breakfast. Of late, he has been attending quite a few AMF, and here's a picture of Annam, who is preaching at PP right in the early days of Singapore. And at that time, Singapore was a country as poor as the Philippines, and there's many percentage of jobless people as in Philippines, and we were way back behind what Philippines is even right now. And on and now, look at this place called Queenstown that the government is trying to open. And with a great deal of leadership skills, passion, organization skills, he contacted more than 3,000 people that took our Bible correspondence course, set up cottage meetings, and put out a publication called The Restorer, send it out on a regular basis, and started a congregation at Queenstown. Never been done before by a local person, much less a teenager, anywhere in Asia at the time. And he did it. He also brought in other people to help him. I think most of us, when we think about trying to establish a new congregation, we have mentors and we have preachers and missionaries trying to encourage us on. But Onandam did it more or less single-handed. And he had to plead with older ones to come in and help. The woman in the center is Sister Polly Lee, that he used her house for the church meeting on the first 2 years. And the AL Harbins have just returned from Australia, so he invited them to come and help out in this new church. And now and then, the Pentecostists would come in and help in this work. But in less than 2 years, the adult people were no longer with us. We moved out from Sister Lee's home. The missionaries have returned home. And here is a young Bible college graduate who don't want to be a minister, who don't want to preach, who just want to knock on doors and do personal work and teach Bible classes. The work of the small congregation, about 40 members, and most of them teenagers, fall in my hands. But the church now is a mature congregation after almost 50 years, and we have over 500 members attending the worships on Sunday. We have 4 worships, 3 of them in English and 1 of them in Chinese. Also, we have an active home ministry which includes hearing impaired, Filipino outreach, Chinese congregation, youth ministry. Let's start talking. When I say Bible courses, I'm referring to Sunset International Biblical Institute. We have a school at Pasir Panjang. Keith is one of the resident lecturers there. We have Brandy and Penny staying in Singapore for the CB school. We have facilities, and quite recently we also have a room for lecturers as well. Right now we have about 6 full-time, 2-year full-time students who will graduate with a BA degree in Bible. And we have small groups in the church which we call care teams. The church is also active in missions program. I should have updated the 2011, did not see it, but our budget each year is way above US 200,000. We get this money through a one Sunday, Mission Sunday contribution by members of the church. We have mission activities in Indonesia, Philippines, Malaysia, Myanmar, China, India, Thailand, Vietnam, and Manchester. Our first church planting was at Batam, Indonesia with Winston Board, and this partnership has lasted more than 10 years. And the congregation there has grown from being supported to self-supporting, and now it is interdependent, and we have a good working relationship. We have to put up this nice plant in Batam, and they also have a very well-used facility for their Bible college in Batam. Tuau is another church planting by our missions committee, in which we partner much for Christ in the Philippines. We sponsor a medical missions to Tuau, and after the medical missions, as the tradition of medical missions by March goes, a church is usually left behind. And Chito and Tess continue to water this work. I don't know how many people he sent on the first years, until I become a little bit concerned because we are spending too much money on Tuau. But they have really set up a very firm foundation. And right now, the church is about 5-6 years old, and they have over 100 members, good team of ministers there, and it's a really fine church planting. This is a church in Sai, Chiang Mai, in which my wife have a great deal of interest with, because my wife is a Chiang Mai girl, and though the Chiang Mai work is not under our official missions budget, yes, a lot of people to go to Chiang Mai. Every time she gets to go to see her family, and the members from their own pocket help to buy this piece of land and build this fine church plant in Chiang Mai. Okay, back home on the ranch, we have our team of 5 elders, 8 deacons, and 3 ministers serving the congregation at Pasir Panjang. And I want to show you a picture I took this morning. One of our elders are here at the AMF as well. Ned and I know Simon for such a long time. I think he has been a member of the church for over 40 years. He was persuaded by his parents when he became a Christian. They lived on the high rise that you see over Singapore. And on Sunday, Simon would take his nice Sunday clothes, bundle it up on the plastic, and throw it out of the window, and walk out of the house as if he's going to the neighborhood market, so that the parents will not be any wiser that he's going to church. But he has, at this time, won both his parents into Christ, his brothers and sisters, because of his steadfast faith. And I believe that Simon is one of the strongest elders that we have at this time. Here is a picture that we took last year on our homecoming, and we have an elder and his wife, Tom and Sue, from the Quill Springs Church, who were my early sponsors, and the rest of the folks you see here are our ministers, deacons, elders, and their wives. And this is the 3 ministers that now serve Pasir Panjang. We call it our team ministers. Okay, I'm going to close with some pictures. This is part of our youth and young adults at PP. One of the things that I'm quite concerned about is our young people. And I think part of the growth of PP is because we have such a fantastic youth program that many people from other churches of Christ who are concerned that their children in their congregation do not have a challenging youth program, they transfer membership to PP. And a lot of our growth is not necessarily a result of baptism, but trying to steal sheep from other churches. We always try to encourage these people to go back to their congregation, not because we don't appreciate them, but sometimes they bring problems from their congregation as well. But we are happy to have them, and I think PP's young people are some of the most fantastic young people in the world. Here is our Chinese congregation, and as you can see, 80% of them are senior citizens. We started the Chinese congregation with the goal of reaching out to our parents. Those of you that come from China will know that it is very difficult for Chinese to convert their parents, because they say that they have crossed more bridges than you have walked on roads, and that they have eaten more salt than you have eaten rice. And there's hardly anything that you can tell your aged parents except by showing them your love and the love of Jesus. And right now, our Chinese congregation has a reputation among the churches of Christ in Singapore. If you want to convert your parents, bring them to the PP Chinese congregations. And it is interesting to note that some old Chinese that has never ever attended a church before, they fell in love with the church instantly because of their caring nature, and they come back time and again. This is our hearing impaired, and Patrick, whom most of you know, is the one that is in charge of our hearing impaired. Our hearing impaired are quite active folks because they have even made a mission trip to India where Joe is, and Joe is asking them to come back because Joe also works with hearing impaired people as well. Here are our lovely Filipino sisters. And if you are familiar with the lifestyle in Singapore, every family have a maid. And most of the maids come from the Philippines. And sometimes I fear that the people in Singapore work so hard that they expect their maids to work just as hard. And so being a maid in Singapore is no fun. And I believe that when they come to church, and we provide them with a clubhouse, and they have lunch together every week, and they are relaxed, and they encourage one another, and it is just such a joy to see the Filipino ministry. And now, in conclusion, PP is celebrating our Jubilee this year, 24th of October, 25th October 64, and 24th of October would bring us a full 50 years, and we will be celebrating God's faithfulness and goodness. Here is a picture taken from our 45th anniversary. We like to go big every 5 years, and we had about 600 people coming in, eating together, celebrating, many from churches in Singapore and Malaysia. And this year, we have already more than 650 seats reserved. And so we are looking forward to maybe having 800 to 1,000 people together. And like I say to our members at PP, we are going to have this celebration on the 17th of October this year. And I don't think any one of you are planning to miss eating on the 17th of October. So if you have to eat, come and join us and be encouraged. And so if any of you are in town on the 17th of October, take this as your personal invitation.